But now let's move to the panel discussion, where we'll dive deeper into the intersection of worker-based monitoring and community-based monitoring. And our panelists will share their perspectives on how these approaches contribute to stronger due diligence processes and address challenges in global supply chains. We'll start with a few prepared questions, and then we'll open the floor to your questions from the chat. Daniela, my colleague, will be monitoring the chat and sharing your questions with me. So let's keep this dynamic and focused so we can cover as much ground as possible in our limited time today. I would like to welcome, and maybe the panelists, you can use some emojis, some reactions, so the audience can identify you. The participants of the panel, the honorary participants are Sultan Ahmed from BILDS Bangladesh. Then there's Naimul Ashan Jewel from GCOP Bangladesh. Very honored to also have a trade unionist among us, with us today. Then Shariar Hossain, which you just got to know, from ESTO Bangladesh, and Alexandra Katabo from Hay Support International. So the first question, let's start with Sultan from BILDS on project design and integration. Let's start a little bit at the meta level. We heard a lot about, specifically recently from Shariar, about environmental protection, health, and before we heard a lot about labor rights. And all of this in generic auditing and impact assessment scenarios is addressed separately, right? So how did the consortium, the different project partners, design this project that integrates worker-based monitoring and community-based monitoring to tackle these interconnected challenges? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Thank you very much, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to listening to all of you. A very good initiative, I would like to say. And I should say this is a very unique initiative. So far as I know, maybe this is one of the first initiatives with the combination of the workers-based management and community-based management. Also, I can say that it's a unique model also, that how workers can be empowered to deal with their own grievances and linked with their rights and environment. I'm sorry, I could not go actually in details that how this project shaped to design this thing, but I know there are a lot of discussion, study and everything. But so far as I understand, that was a necessity. Actually, having environment and workers are separate, especially in the working area, industrial cities. That was a wrong approach for a long time. So I, instead of saying that how this project actually shaped, I would like to say these project partners made a realistic steps, and which is reality, which is actually necessary. That workers-based management and community-based management, because workers are staying in the workplace maybe from 10 to 12 hours. If I include the overtime, as Ashraf mentioned, that workers also expect overtime, but another 12 hours they stay in the home, in the community, in the area. And many of our study says that how the environment are actually degrading, and how the other social environmentals, not only I'm saying that river, water, soil and everything, even socially they are facing a lot of problem, which we need community engagement. So this project actually, they had what we listen from the second presentation, that how they manage the things about the data collection, everything. So I feel that this is a very realistic approach and very necessary approach to do this thing. Second, I should say that in BILDS and BLA, both are actually I'm saying these two organizations because I know them very well. So they have the trade union connection, and we have the local community mobilization before that also, especially the green community mobilization and everything. So whenever bills design any program, or an organization like BLF design on any program, we always consider that how trade union can engage, how workers can engage a lot, maybe not within factory level and the community level. So that is the another element which help the project partners all together. I'm saying all the partners, that how we can integrate these two approach together. And third, what I would like to say, that without combining or integrate these two approach together, you cannot make any change, because workers' rights even inside the factory is also related with many environmental issues. If workers not empowered with the environmental issues, then they cannot actually place their demand, also place their grievance, which is one of the major elements of these projects, that workers will understand the individual approach, their grievances, and they can put forward their grievances. So inside the factory, there are many environmental issues. From the factory, there are many issues which contribute to the environmental damage. That's also workers need to talk, especially the trade union need to talk. And so how when we can integrate it, when we can relate the workers-based approach to community-based approach, factory inside approach to community approach, then it will be a unique activities, unique joint efforts to initiate the change. So this is one area where, so far as I understand about the whole discussion. And another thing is that in Bangladesh context, if I tell, it is difficult to address one single problem isolatedly. It's all are related, integrated with one problem to another.
Not only in Bangladesh, it's the world we live in.
So I understand this everywhere, but in our case, it is very important, because the industrial belt where we are serving, where the workers are staying, it's not a planned industrial belt. In 60s, we had some industrial belt which is built on very planned way. We have all the workers' facilities, colony, workers' quarter, playground, and everything. But this Ashulia, Shabar, Gazipur, these areas, even some areas of Naranganj, it's actually not built as a planned way. Workers gather there, people buy the land, and they build the factories without considering anything. Environment, society, and everything. Last Friday I was in Ashulia Belt.
Well, considering profit, right?
To meet with the workers, and they're saying that now they are suffering, that their children are in insecure position, because they regularly they go to the factory, and evening they come back. They don't know how they are, especially the adolescent child, they're staying there and their education and everything. So that is another problem, that these all industrial built spontaneously by purchasing land, a small piece, establishing factory, and then workers gather there. Some people, those who have the land, they build the tin shed, slum-like household, and they are staying there. So these are the issue you need to solve by a community mobilization, by a community initiative. You cannot solve individually. So that's another area. And for this community mobilization, you need actually a workers mobilization also. And not only workers, even I would like to say factory owners also. So there is a necessity in these areas where we need community-based approach, workers-based approach, and joint efforts. But challenge is there, what I feel, that this model, individual empowerment and everything, if we cannot integrate with the trade union and factory-based others committee, who can represent workers, who can protect workers when they will represent themselves, when they will raise any concern and grievances, then it will be question of their individual safeguard or individual job security and everything. Because in our environment, people are not very much respectful to the individual grievance. They always consider the collective grievance and always think that individual grievance means they are isolated, they are weak person. So I think one of the element we need to consider how this workers-based monitoring system can be based on the collective monitoring. That means the union or safety committee or participation committee, whatever we say, it should be a structured way. And how this factory-based committee can jointly work with the community-based community, and how we can engage other actors of the community also, like government officials, other departments. I think at
Yeah,
the
on
first time
somehow,
we
like
understand.
on some level, there's like this necessity for structure, but on the other hand, because of the diversity of the communities and the landscapes, there's also a certain flexibility necessary, right? What is basically done in the project, right?
Yeah, but it should be lead to collective efforts. It should lead to a
Of course,
structural effort.
always. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I would love to jump even deeper into, the project design and how the collective understands integration. But yeah, with a look at the clock at the time, thank you very much, Sultan, for your expert opinion and elaborating on this. What I understood and what I found really interesting that you said at the beginning, that there was a necessity. So the necessity was already there, and folks have actually communicated this necessity for a very long time, right? And then also bringing it in line with one of the comments from the chat box, somebody wrote lack of voice. And whenever somebody says or writes lack of voice, I actually like to quote Arundhati Roy. There's a beautiful quote from her where she says, there is no voiceless. There is no voiceless, but there are folks being silenced, right? And this is generally happening on the factory floor and also on the community level. All right, now let's dive into data collection and utilization. There have been a lot of questions on data gathering, evaluation, and assessment approaches already in the chat box. And I would like to start with Shariar from Esto. If you could elaborate on kind of how does the data collected through WBM and CBM, worker-based monitoring and community-based monitoring, support companies in meeting their due diligence obligations, particularly under the CSDDD. And yeah, maybe afterwards, Alex from Hey Support could add on here. Shadia, please.
Thank you. And actually, to collect the data, and we are very seriously maintained the protocols and the validation process, participation, the equal participations of the gender-based approach, community-based approach, worker-based approach. So you can see that, and we are trying hard that no one should be behind in this process. So at least we can say that we are trying hard to include all community members, the workers in the selected factories in this process, and to talk about their opinions and the accurate data and data validations is doing in the independent mechanism. And particularly, we can say that for the community-based monitoring, and we collected the sample It is a random sample collection in the first phase, and second phase, we are collected sample in highlighting and identifying the contaminated site. And that site already visible as a contaminated site. And I can mention that the Nayanjali Khal in Ashulia, it's well known. And this canal was the blood stream for the community about 2 decades ago. Now, this canal is a burden for the community because this canal water is totally contaminated. And there is no water for use, no water for drink, no water for irrigations. So if you can visit that area, you can see, you can generally identify this is a highly contaminated place. So we identify the contaminated site, we use the GPS tracking mechanism and all possible GRS and GPS system to validate the process. So I can say that we have trying our best to collect the accurate information, accurate sampling, and that's sent to the different lab. And for the lab, we have very strict, and we are not going to compromise with anyone. And because we are not strict with the one lab, we are strict in 3 different labs. And now we are thinking that this is not enough. We would like to add more analysis. And now we are planning to do some immediate field level analysis mechanism that we are now conducting with another lab in Philippines. They have the expertise for XRF analyzing. So that can be immediately give you the result. So hopefully we are signing the agreement with that lab, and after the Ramadan, the next month, we will conduct that kind of field analysis activities again. At least we can say that we have tapped all possible ways, all possible instrument and mechanism to collect and validate the data.
Great. Thank you so much, Shariar. Alex, how would you respond to this? Anything to add here, specifically with regard to CSDDD? I guess a lot of folks might be asking this.
Yes. So, first of all, I would like to say that although I'm a project partner, I'm always amazed about our project, because it's one of the very few projects that combine like the social topics, the labor topics with the environment topics. That is quite unique, I have to say. And it also reflects very well that the UN General Assembly in July 2022 has decided that the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is actually a human right, finally. So when we talk about human rights, we also now talk about environment, a healthy environment. And this is often forgotten. So we all know that we are facing multifaceted problems here. And these can only be solved if we think outside our silos and cooperate. And we know that there's already a lot going on in audits and data on the worker-based part, which is great, and we contribute a lot to this. But for the environmental part and the community-based monitoring, we are pretty pioneering in this project. So of course, what we do is based on tests. Tests are not new, and we have a toolkit. The toolkit is also based on an existing one. However, bringing all this together is very unique, and we hope that we can build on this in the future and make it like a real, roll it out more general and more steady. And I also want to say that due diligence and responsibility do not stop at the factory door. Companies are also responsible for harm caused outside the factory, such as environmental pollution and health effects of communities close to their production sites. So therefore, with the toolkit that the project developed, this toolkit really empowers communities to collect data by themselves, so they learn how to do it, and then to know about also potential legal entry points. So who do I have to address if I have a contaminated soil? And this is, of course, also very interesting for companies because, as I said, due diligence doesn't stop at the factory door. And overall, what has coming back to your question, Lavinia, of course, due diligence and also supply chain regulation has to deal with environmental topics. Often it's a bit overlooked, especially also the chemicals part of it, but this has to be strengthened. And with project like ours, we provide tools and data that companies can rely on because we really strictly stick to international standards here. And yeah, for now, I hope I answered your question.
Definitely, both of you. Obviously, because you're more focused on the community-based monitoring and the environmental aspects. And therefore, maybe Fiona from Wage Indicator, we hadn't planned it, but maybe you could elaborate like super shortly because we are already a little bit behind time. What about worker-based monitoring?
Hi, Lavinia. Can you please, repeat again? Because I was busy writing answers in the chat. So
Oh, I'm so
completely follow
sorry.
on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was just contacted by Danny, who was asking me to also include you. Now, we're talking about how does the collected data, right, in this project support companies in meeting their due diligence, specifically with regard to CSDDD. And Shariat and Alex already gave spectacular answers, opened like basically a new universe for us. But could you also elaborate like super shortly on like worker-based monitoring? Because obviously both of them have been focusing on community-based monitoring. Right?
Yeah, so I think it's a bit of an early question to answer actually, because I think we are in the middle of trying to explore what worker-based monitoring can do and how it can inform companies within their due diligence. So it's a relevant question, I think, to ask, but also something that we are trying to explore together also in the context of this partnership. The reason why I'm saying that, and that's also part of the questions that were asked in the chat that I was trying to respond to, is that we of course have a representative sample per factory of the working population in the factory. So we have a representative sample of the ratio male-female workers, migrant workers, contracted, not contracted, full-time, part-time, all of that, which we try to use to get an understanding of the level of compliance on labor law within the factory. But the purpose of our data is not to perform or change social audits or replace social audits. The purpose is to use that data to strengthen social dialogue. And I think that's an important difference to make because there are a lot of social audits happening there with the increased due diligence regulations. You'll see that many companies are looking for ways to understand what's happening in factories. And we hope that our data can both inform brands about what's happening in factories. That's also part of the reason why we, of course, have all of our data open. So it's open and public so people can look at it. But at the same time, we think our data, and especially the worker-based monitoring data, is more to be used for meaningful stakeholder engagement rather than replacing social audits. That is because it is there to strengthen, first and foremost, social dialogue within the country and within the sector. With that, we hope that can also, for brands, improve their meaningful stakeholder engagement within Bangladesh and within the sector there, rather than seeing this as a replacement of social audits.
Super. Thank you so much for wrapping this up, Fiona. I'd anyways would love to dig deeper into worker and community perspectives because, like again, in this panel, well, not only in this panel, but the whole session, I feel our collective obsession with data. You know, it's like 70% of the questions in the chat box are about data and the quality of data. Yeah, therefore, I would love to open the floor now for the work and community perspectives, you know, the perspectives from the ground. And I would love to hear from Naimul Ahsan. Jewel, are you there?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, nice to have you with us. Could you share a little bit how the project works in terms of like what is different? How is the dialogue different? How is ownership different? How are power structure different? Do you think that rights holders have a different role and more power in this project?
সঠিক রোল প্লে করতে পারতেছি কিনা এই প্রজেক্টের মাধ্যমে শুরু করেন
Thank you for question. Thank you for a good opportunity to join us this program for the workers side. Workers-based monitoring is now approach to us for the trade union and created a scope for the evidence-based dialogue. Local trade union often lacks data and evidence which make collective bargaining and advocacy and initiative challenging workers-based monitoring approach amongst those difficulties. I want to highlight the assessment tools used in the project. Decent work, check, creation. About the core sector in Bangladesh, national legal framework, so it created good evidence for the local trade union to see the role of labor standard in the factories with the findings of the decent work check for the collective bargaining, dialogue and negotiation will be highly effective and outcoming based.
Outcoming based, you said, right? Interesting.
Yes.
Acha.
The trade union themselves and also the work need to be educated about this right. HRDD approach and requirements in the project. Capacity of LAC unions will be enhanced through theoretical and problem-based workshop, and in the turn there will raise awareness among the workers on the issue of their rights, workplace safety, etc. based of the negotiation. Once the workers are educated and aware of these rights and means they reporting, then they can further sharing their role, time, situation about the rights, safety, and any dispute. The sectoral and national federation through the local trade union can mobilize and encourage the workers to share first-hand information on workplace condition along role time identification of this issue. I would also like to mention that environment issue also have a great stake in the project, and these are also core issue for workers. Through the joint intervention, trade union and the community have the opportunity to exchange and support each others also. From the learning of this project, trade union can include every movement and related mobilization advocacy in their mainstream activities. If I ask you about the challenges, I want to say the Bangladesh is the organizing efforts, and trade union participants are very limited in the R&D sector. We have less than 10% organized workforce for R&D sector also. Most of the workers are still not very aware of their core rights.
Yeah.
There are problems, but we have enough opportunity to work together. Where I want to highlight the workers-based monitoring is not only the responsibility of trade union. It requires collective action involving workers, TUs, factories, management, buyers, and policymakers, which like trade unions can serve as trade union can serve as a backbone of this process. They can ensure that work voice and are heard. Violence are documentary, and necessary action are taken of the long-term improvement in the R&D sector.
Super.
Thank you.
Naimal Bhai, I need to interrupt you, unfortunately, although I think we would all like to hear more, but because of time.
Okay, thank you for
no, thank you for sharing all of this.
This is very helpful for our worker side. This is very helpful, but this is fully new scope for workers. This type of project and this type of work. This
yeah,
is very
right.
helpful for workers.
Yeah.
We have to our workers will identify the which things is lacking for the workers' rights. They have to ensure their rights and their gaps inside the factory, and also community base also.
Yeah. I mean, the focus is and should be on them.
Thank you.
To lower the burden, absolutely. But anyways, like from what I heard from you was like that thanks to these joint efforts, I do hear out a little bit that power structures are shaken a little bit. It's new, right?
Yes.
And in some instances uncertain, but power structures are definitely shaken. Yeah. Thank you. So time, Q&A. Danny, what do you have for me for the panelists or the consortium? What super emerging questions arose, which we did not yet address?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for all the questions. There were many of them. So there's a lot of interest in our project, which is nice. I think thanks to Fiona also in the background, we actually managed to cover most of them. But I think there's a real interest in finding out how the questions are actually designed, especially with regard to sensitive issues such as gender-based violence, for example. And on the other hand, how rights holders are actually really included. So maybe this is the two questions we can look a little bit more into. So on the one hand, how is the data actually collected? Are there concrete examples, for example, for questions of the survey regarding gender-based violence? And in the end, how are rights holders really informed about those results, and how are they included in the survey and in the monitoring tools? So
Yeah.
these 3 questions, I think, sum up all the questions of the chat. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. So first question on data sets and data quality. And I think once we answered that question, we can go into the rights holders, because obviously it overlaps. Who would like to answer the data question? How are questions designed?
I can give a small answer on this, but I think most of that I've already covered in the chats. But
Yeah, but for
so
the ones who did not read the chat.
yeah, exactly. So the Decent Work Check is the survey tool that we use to do the first compliance check with workers in the factories or outside the factories in this case. And those questions are completely based on nationally applicable and EPZ labor laws. So they're basically a yes and no question check to see whether or not rights are respected. So it's a quite simple but very long survey because we want to be elaborate, we want to make sure that we cover all of the laws in the questionnaire. Of course, after that, so after the initial survey, so the survey design is very much based on the national labor law. It's a legal check, basically, whether rights are respected, yes or no. So also the questions around sexual harassment and gender-based violence are according to women's rights. That being said, and I think that is also something that Ashraf addressed in his presentation already, because we talk to the workers face to face, so we don't do an online survey, but we really talk to them. We also hear their actual lived experience, which is often different than the whether or not their rights are respected, yes or no. So what we hear from some of the survey designs, and I hope that Ashraf can actually shed some extra light on this as well, is that many women experience gender, like sexual harassment, but also harassment at the work floor in terms of verbal violence as normal. So they they have sort of, it's part of their job in general. So it's an important thing to address in terms of how do we make sure that it's a cultural change in the end, that this is not normal. So we try with the survey design to understand whether rights are respected, yes or no, and with the context in which we interview the workers, we try to make sure that we also understand what is behind their answer, and we also try to address that when we start working with the data to actually have social dialogues and negotiations to get talking about how to change the working conditions. So the survey is really the first step, after which we start engaging.
Yeah, so it's basically that you the design of the questions is based on contextualizing, right? What is
it's based on the law and understand on the local law.
But
and
the approach is contextualizing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, with different intercultural.
And it's helpful that the survey is
the missing link.
No, but it's helpful that the survey is designed on the basis of the law, because then you can always start your conversation on the basis of that. And then, of course, because then there's no bias in law. I mean, there is obviously always a bias in law, but we can have many discussions about that on a later basis. But it's an easy start for a conversation because it's in the law. And then you can get going after that. But maybe Ashraf can shed some extra light on the surveys we've done with the workers, actually.
Yeah, I need to know. No, not in this session, unfortunately, because there's a lot of folks going to be leaving now in 1 minute because they will be jumping into other sessions. For that reason, Danny, I would love you to share already the contact details and everything in the chat box. In the follow-up email, just to inform you, there's going to be the recording and contact data and so on and so forth. The consortium, we are obviously going to stay until at least 5 minutes past the hour in order to keep on answering questions for everybody who has joined us today. Thank you so much for being here and being so critical and provocative and like engaging in the chat box and so on and so forth. I think it was really fun. Like in between, I was like I would love to jump in the chat box, but no, I have to moderate. Now, final question from the audience, rights holders. How are they actually integrated? We talked a little bit about this, but there's
Maybe
more.
maybe I can come in and
Please.
then Sharia, you tell everything that I missed. Yeah, I mean the work on the ground that our colleagues from from ESTO are doing is actually involving rights holders from the beginning, and we are providing tools for rights holders. I mean, the community, the inhabitants are rights holders, and so this is like 100% A to Z rights holder involvement, and not just during the project, but also beyond the project duration with the toolkit. They have something at hand where they can use to to measure, to take samples and do it in a way that is also recognized and accepted. And so they can come with real evidence to the companies, to their local authorities, and this will drive change. So, yeah, Sharia, do you want to add, please?
No, actually, it's all right, as Alex says, that this is already taken in account for give the ownerships to the community of the project. So this project is a unique approach. We are trying to integrate it, the factory and the community together. So that means it is to address the issue of rights, gender, occupational health safety, environmental health, and social security together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shariat. And Louisa, would you like to share the last slide?
Yes.
Please. Yes, great. Folks are leaving. Feel free to say goodbye in the chat box. Yeah, over here you can see how you can further engage. And I want to thank you all for joining us today again. I think your engagement and insights have been invaluable. And yeah, have a great rest of the day and many more insightful chats and conversations during the OECD Forum. And let's continue this important work together. Bye-bye.